And I'll probably turn my video off. My computer's being a little bit weird with too much stuff going on. So want to welcome you out. And this is our second session of the Summer Recruitment Institute. And we're going to be sharing one of our oldies but goodies, I guess. I feel like once I train on something once or twice that everyone's seen it. And I have to be reminded that, this is not something that everybody has seen. So I just put a link. Let me share this on our website, share where I am, where this is coming from. So if you go to our website and get to the beginning of it and scroll down a little bit, you'll see something that says Recruiter Resources. And the information I'm going to be sharing today comes from our Balanced Recruitment series. And we have a ton of resources on our Recruiter Resource page. And so I have a bunch of them that say new next to it. These were new things that were added. Either things were updated on it. So I want to make sure people know that they can go and find this, but we have a myriad of resources available. And this is kind of everything together in, one section right here that we want to make sure people know. So I'm going to be spending time today in this hour-long session about balanced recruitment. And we have a training tomorrow that is a secondary backup to this one that is on how coordinators can really support recruiters in these efforts. So if you're a coordinator, you're kind of learning about what balanced recruitment is. And then tomorrow we'll actually share kind of the coordinator's role and how they can facilitate and make things a little bit easier for recruiters. So I will try to pay attention to the chat box. And I encourage you to put any of your questions or thoughts that you have. Looks like we have a group from all over the place, which I think deepens the conversation. I know this is one-sided. I'm kind of talking to my computer, but I'm imagining that you're all there. And because there are so many, we did it in webinar form. That way it's not distracting to see everybody's video for whoever's watching this later too. So welcome everybody. And let me go back and share my slides. So I'm going to stop my video just so that my tech will work good. Okay, so probably about 2 or 3 years ago, we were noticing that a lot of school districts and a lot of programs across the country really are good at certain areas, but not at others. And this is different in every area. So I can think of states that are very out in the field, community-based, who have a challenge working with the schools, and other states, which is more of the norm, that are very comfortable working in schools, and that's where most of the recruitment is done, but they're not super comfortable with housing or not very comfortable with agribusiness or farms. And so it is a challenge to recruit. I personally have lots of experience in that. I started many years ago as the IDR coordinator for the state of Tennessee. And my job was when I started, it was myself and a part-time person, and that we were the staff. And so we had this huge state, at least in my mind, it seemed, not as big as Texas or anything, but Tennessee's about 10 hours across. If you drive from the bottom, it's like a big long rectangle with the edges cut off. And I had no idea about agriculture. I grew up not in an agriculture home as far as, anyone ever introducing that. I did speak Spanish, and that was about my only advantage that I had going on. And I was really interested in the job, but I had nowhere where to start. And so I feel like a lot of people have similar starts where they're kind of given the job, but they're not really sure exactly how to do it. And so this session is really going to talk about the 4 areas of the community that we call balanced recruitment. And you'll hear this term a lot. We mention it a bunch because we believe that if we're not in all of these areas, we are absolutely missing people. But we also realize and recognize that people may have never worked canvassing housing, for example, or not sure where to start. So I'm going to walk you through the basics. Some of you that have been around a lot of time, if you may say, hey, I know all this stuff. If you have something that I don't mention that you want to share with your peers of, hey, I really like to do this in the community, or this is key for me, or this is a resource I use, please use the chat box and share. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask those throughout. So we developed a 4-part training series that covered all 4 of the areas. So I have 4 videos on our website where I shared. Let me go back to that just so that you can see it. If you go back to the Balanced Recruitment series, you click on this. There are 4 videos that are just designed that you could sit and listen about in-depth how to work with schools, in-depth how to work with each one of these areas. I'm going to give you an overview today of them. So there's a lot more in each one of these videos. And then we also have all the PowerPoints. So if you are training your staff and you want to change it up or you want to do that, then you can you can access this. And then coordinators, where it says coordinators wondering how you can support balanced recruitment. We are going to do a video. We just finished this training resource. And so if you click on this, it'll take you to a new training resource, like a slide deck. And we're going to do a recording that will be on the website that'll accompany these other ones. So I just want to make sure that you know where that is. And then I'm going to go back to my slides. So we believe that you have to canvas housing. You have to really develop partnerships and know of the community places where families and youth are. You have to also very much work with schools and also work with agribusiness and farms. So I want to kind of talk about each one of those. And I want you to kind of think in your mind, which one is the area that you have the hardest time with? Because I think I was in a training one time that I asked recruiters what they didn't like about recruitment. And almost all of them, except for 2 recruiters, had something to say. And we had 2 recruiters that I asked them, and I said, have you, what do you not like? Oh, we love it. We love everything about it. And I thought, boy, that's really weird. And then I later talked to their supervisor that said, oh, they only recruit in schools. I was like, well, of course, you can love it if you're only in schools. If you go out in the farms or in the community, there's going to be some moments that are not going to be your favorite, but if you'll push through it, you can really find the people that we're looking for. So those trainings, like I said, you can access those through our page. So we're going to start with community recruitment, and I'm going to put in the chat box. If you are training a brand new recruiter and you want to talk about community groups, put in the chat box what community group you think is most essential to reach out to. Go ahead and throw that in the chat box and we'll just see what you guys put in there. And I just realized, I don't know that oh no, I am recording. Okay. So what is your favorite community recruitment? These are places you're going to go out in the community and you're going to make sure that you do that. Where is it? What is it? So I've got some farmers, some orchards, farmers, free clinics, okay, housing, churches, schools and health department, grocery stores. I tell you what, I never go to Walmart on Friday nights. I hate to go when there's a ton of people. I went recently and the entire Walmart, it seemed like, was full of H-2A workers. So in my community, I don't recruit in here anymore because I'm not a recruiter for the state of Tennessee or, work in IDR in Tennessee. But boy, that Walmart was full of people that I thought if I was a recruiter right now, I would be talking to this one, this one, this one. So we've got garage sales, schools, churches, laundromats, apartment complexes, dairies, cheese plants, honey farms, Latino restaurants, table by table, says Isela. Ag extension office, thrift stores, human resources, the mall, farmers, churches, groceries. So you can see there's a ton of places. So you've got to figure out where are migrant families going to go or what groups already work with them. So when you're thinking of community recruitment, this is everything that you need to go in your community, like your farms and agribusiness, but we're going to kind of put them in a different area. These are all the locations or all the partners that you could possibly use. So we used to tell our recruiters, you're looking for referrals and resources. So who could provide you a referral and who has a resource that you want to share with families? So who would they be? So we want to make sure in this particular section of the balanced recruitment, we really go into why you should do this, how to locate where families are going to be, how to build relationships with those community partners, how to organize your information and plan and for any outreach, and then ideas for interactions and interviews. Now, remember, I'm giving you the cliff notes of this pretty much because there's a much more in-depth presentation just for community recruitment. So if there's more, when we talk about the farms, fishing, and agribusiness sections of balanced recruitment, we're going to talk about what you do when you go to visits, how you work with these different groups, how you build on the lists and organize your areas and prioritize who to visit. When we talk about housing, we're going to talk about the resources that can help recruiters really access different types of housing, to know how to find the transitional types of housing, and to how to build trust the moment that recruiters really start talking at the front door of someone. Let me look at the chat box and see if anybody added anything else. Someone put town hall meetings, local churches, poultry plants, thrift stores, food pantries, soccer leagues, preschools, Mexican Spanish stores, kids fairs. Okay. It says, all right. So working with schools, we're going to, in this particular series, we talk about why school-based recruitment is important, different ways that you can work with school staff, how to build relationships that lead to referrals, and how to organize your information in the best way. So I want to go back to the Balanced Recruitment page on our website, and I'm going to drop this in the chat box in case anybody didn't see where we got this at. And I want to open up a tool that's here. So we have a tool that's called the Recruiter Strength Assessment. And if you click on this, we'll go ahead and take a look at this, and I'll drop it in the chat box. So one of the things is we don't really, all of us have favorite places to go and where we spend our time the most, where we feel like is probably the easiest or so this assessment is really meant to be given as a self-assessment for a recruiter and then to be shared with their supervisor, not as like a pass fail, but more of like, hey, I really realize this area may be an area that I need support with. And so then a supervisor would be able to figure out how to support those efforts and maybe give them more training on an area. And I did this with a program in Colorado, and they might be on here, I'm not sure. And it was interesting because as they gave this to their staff, some of the areas that were not areas of strength of one recruiter was a complete area of strength of another recruiter. So they were able to kind of pair them together so they can learn. So let me go through this so you just kind of know what it is. So the first thing we ask them is to think about where they've spent their time in the last 6 months. So how much of your percentage of your time, and now thinking that you only have 100% right there, would farms and agribusiness, would that be 20%? Would that be 50%? So the recruiter will go through and put that in. What about visiting farm worker housing? What about visiting local housing sites commonly, occupied by migrant farm workers? What about time that you're visiting enrolled families or community partners or locations that are in the community that farm workers might visit? Or how long do you spend speaking with schools or school staff? And how much time do you spend planning? So we ask them to start with there. And then we ask them on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being the least comfortable, 5 being the most comfortable, how they feel in each one of these areas. So speaking to farm, agribusiness, or HR personnel. So this is where, as a supervisor, you may have a recruiter that's very comfortable walking up to a farm. No problem at all. They can talk to the farmer, they can navigate that, but maybe really uncomfortable the idea they're going to go to a Tyson plant and have to walk in and talk with somebody from HR. So they're going to kind of think about these things. Then the next thing, how comfortable are they speaking to large groups of workers at a time? So you may think, why is this relevant? Because sometimes with recruitment, you have this group of, a huge group of workers. I can think of many times when I was recruiting in Tennessee that I would, get into a processing plant or there's one specific time that I think of that there was an onion farm in New Mexico that I went, and it was actually the packing house where they packed. And I asked if I could talk to the workers, and they told me I needed to go talk to a supervisor. And the supervisor was in a lunchroom. He had an office off to the side, and I knocked on the door, and he was in the room with a worker in there. And he was like, yeah, sure, just talk to everybody. And right there in the room were probably 200 workers. So here I am standing in front, they're all eating, and I'm thinking, what is the best strategy to get all of these guys to listen to me really quick while they're in lunch? I can't go myself table by table, it's too many. So I needed a strategy to be able to talk to those workers all at one time. And for me, that's not my favorite thing, but it was something that I knew that I had to do. So your recruiters are going to kind of think, how comfortable are they with that? Then are they okay with speaking to workers by themselves or in a small group? Then how are they with visiting housing locations? Are they okay with trailer parks? Are they okay with an apartment building or a hotel? I have had recruiters tell me I absolutely will not go to housing. So I think that they're completely missing a ton of people if they don't do that, because you can't always find them at school. You can't always find them at work, and it's way better to find them at home if you can't find them in the other places. Are they comfortable going to H2A camp or H2A housing? Are they okay canvassing housing in an urban setting? Do they have the tools to be able to do that? Are they good with canvassing housing in a rural setting? So they kind of rate how they're doing and look at their score. Then they go on with community and school. How comfortable are they establishing relationships with school staff? How about presenting MEP in order to develop partnerships? Are they okay with those kind of things? What about explaining MEP to a family or to an OSY? And then they get kind of a score for that. And then the last thing is really asking them how they do their planning. Are they able to get their paperwork in a timely manner? Do they have like a plan that actually planned for the week that includes locations, businesses, agencies that can be visited? Are they okay gathering and organizing resources and materials to be able to share? How about using ag data? Do they know where to find their farms? Do they really know how to do that? Can they follow up with leads? Or how good are they at keeping track of that? And then how comfortable are they seeking opportunities to expand? So then they kind of go through this and they think, all right, what's the areas that are their strongest? What are the areas they believe they can grow in? What is an area they need support in? And what changes would really be helpful to the IDNR efforts? So this, like I said in the comment, these are good questions to ask when conducting an interview to hire a new person. So you could, you could ask them, would you be okay with this? Would you not? But the idea is by the time they get done, they've got an idea of really where their strengths are and where their weaknesses are. And so when we go back to this idea of balanced recruitment, if you're a supervisor, you've got to know that there's going to be areas that they're not going to be as comfortable with. And so you want to be able to support that. And if you're a recruiter, you've got to identify if there's an area that you're not as comfortable. Like, for example, when I was in Tennessee, there wasn't anybody to give me support. So if I wasn't comfortable with working with farms and fisheries and forestry or whatever, I needed to figure out how to get comfortable. There wasn't going to be anybody that was going to come along and be like, hey, Jessica, this is how you could do it. I was kind of in charge to figure that out. So it's not always in an ideal situation, but these tools that we have here are just designed to help you know how to do some of those things. But it doesn't alleviate the uncomfortableness that happens sometimes when you're trying to figure out these things yourself. So this is all based on the idea with this training module that, if we're not visiting all of these, then we're definitely missing. So now I'm going to go a little bit in depth on some of the highlights of some of the areas. So if you could train recruiters, or you yourself as a recruiter, when you're trying to figure out working in the community, where are families going? Where are those locations or that youth or families are going? And then who has resources that you can share that can possibly give you a referral? So we know that they work and live in all sorts of communities. I've had recruiters say, I make sure that I always go to the Dollar General or to the, dollar store, because when families are new in an area, they'll go and buy toiletry items, maybe shower curtains, things like that. And so I make sure that I've got partnership with them. Other ones, it's churches. Other ones, it really varies per county, per area, what resources you have. So we should always be trying to look for more communities, more resources in our community that are, good to help recruit at. So we want to make sure we're visiting those places, such as your stores, such as your laundromats. Sorry, after I talk too much, I start coughing. Things like churches, employment agencies, tax offices. So you want to be able to just make sure you know. I know we've shared this a bunch, and in case people have not heard of this, I'm going to go back and share this one more time. Findhelp.org. You don't know what you don't know. And so if you go to findhelp.org, let's say that I'm trying to figure out, you just listen to this presentation and you're thinking, I have no idea in the community where I even need to go. So you put your zip code in at findhelp.org, and then you look at the resources. So there's some food resources. So if I'm the new recruiter where in my town, I'm going to check out like food delivery, not really, food pantry. What food pantries are there? So then I'm going to see, okay, Upper Cumberland Human Resource Agency has these, this is their location. Then I'll go back and say, I wonder what else they have. Who has actually, meals? Who provides meals to the community? Well, I can look through these and see if any of these might be relevant. Most of these I'm seeing might not be relevant. Then I go back and look at, this has food, housing, goods, transit, health, money, care, education, work, legal. One of the best ways to figure out in your community where you need to go is just take a look at some of these resources. Now, the cool thing is you can share these with families too in whatever language. They can change it and be able to see. So maybe I just want to know what health resources there are, or, what type of care is available. So you can just kind of check out each one of those kind of things for finding places in the community. So it says here, it could be make notes of places you pass as you're out in the community, spend some time researching different agencies in the community that offer resources. When I was recruiting in some areas, I always went to churches. And so I'd spend a good amount of time, trying to go to figure out when their service was, talk to whoever was in charge, find out if they would let me talk to people. And I would show up at the end of the service, or sometimes they'd have me sit through something and then I'd talk to them afterwards. But I'd always try to figure out who are the key community players in the town that know everybody. and that know where I can go. And so sometimes churches were a great resource. So go visit these locations, see what they do, figure out how you can work together, keep good notes, and follow up with anything that you're supposed to. So another thing is you want to make sure that you're marketing to the community correctly. That's one of those things that happens in MigrantEd is you suddenly need to know a lot of different things. And one is how to, really be able to put your pamphlets or your things in the right way. Years ago, we had a 1-800 number. Many of you guys remember the Escort 1-800 number that you could call for if people needed resources and we used it in Tennessee. We had some bilingual books that we would use and that we created, and we would put these little flyers of want to learn English, and we'd put the 1-800 number and say, if you qualify, we have resources that can help you. And then they would call us, or they'd call Escort, and Escort would give us the number, and we would explain the program and see if they were eligible. And if they were eligible, we would send them a book. We'd show up. If they weren't eligible, we'd tell them, hey, this is who we're looking for in the community. If you can get a hold of us and, give us a referral, we'll give you a book. And so they would help get the network out a little bit bigger. So IDRC has a survey tool that, a referral tool that anyone can use. Let me go ahead and share where that is. You just have to have permission from your state. It's free. So if you go on our page and it says resources to share, you scroll down, there is something that says provide a referral here. So this is a referral tool that anyone can use. So one of the things you're going to want to think about is what materials are you putting in the community? If I believe under training tools, if you click this, we have some sample brochures over here. So this is just a referral system general brochure. And we, in some states that, IDRC states, they use this. This is just a suggestion of the kind of thing that you could make for, let me drop this in the chat box in case people can't read it, of what you can use to try to get referrals. So this is a challenge for MigrantEd. A lot of times we put information out, but we don't have something specific that we're asking somebody to do. So maybe we talk to the health department and we see if they'll put up our poster. And then if we try to build a relationship with any translators they have, so that if a family might possibly benefit from knowing about us, they'd be willing to share the information or share a brochure. So this just is a generic one that says, hey, you might know someone that qualifies. Here's some basic things that we do, who qualifies. And then we have the link to where they can provide a referral. Any state can use these. There's information, you can put your name on it. You can get the original file and, add what you want to. So, this is a simple one. We also have the school district one. So this is saying, hey, this is one of your students might qualify. What's MigrantEd? We're a little bit more specific because we're explaining this Title I Part C in for the schools. We've got a link where they can provide a referral, and then kind of explaining what this resource is. We also have, I believe, a farm one right here that says, hey, you might have a worker that's eligible. So you want to think about the materials that you're providing. And again, you don't have to use this at all, but the referral tool, anyone can use it. It says the form should take no more than two or 3 minutes. You can put the person's information. So let's say you have the health department that agrees, or Migrant Head Start that agrees to work with you. They can put the name of the parent in there. You can put your address. I'm just going to put some fake stuff. You can put your state, and then it will let you then be able to, pick your city, and then it'll automatically pre-populate your county, and then you can put your number in. So, or whoever the referral is for. It'll ask if anyone's under the age that's of 22. You can say yes, and then press next. So this could be any of your partners. Has anyone in the household moved or traveled for school in the last 36 months? You say yes. Has anyone been employed in agri-fishing during this time? They say no, then they'll be like, I don't know that you need to. Let's see what happens if I press no. Oh, it'll still take it because it's far enough. So you press the information in there, then you can put your contact. I'm just going to put this as a sample. And any additional and then you press next, and it'll say, thank you, this has been submitted. Now, on the backhand side, you can have an account that'll let you know, for Nebraska, for example, Isauda can be the one that gets all the referrals that she can then distribute out, or everyone can be able to have their own account. It just depends on how you guys set it up. So or comments that I like the brochure. I would take it with me when I went recruiting. The school one is great for the school counselor. So this is a free tool that's available to everybody that you guys can use. And so this idea of marketing to the community, you want to think about, what do you want? Do you need one specifically for churches? Do you need one specifically for, health departments? You want to think about, what you're going to put on that flyer, and don't just always have the same Migrant Ed flyer that you send to everybody, because it may not be relevant for everybody. So possible community locations: laundromats, grocery or ethics stores, health clinics, departments, Head Start programs. We do have a partnership with Migrant and Seasonal Head Start. Their national leadership is willing to, if any state doesn't have a good relationship or wants to build that relationship with Migrant Head Start, reach out to us. We can set up a meeting where their national leadership will get with the state leadership and try to bring as many of those partners from Migrant and Seasonal Head Start to the table with Migrant Ed at the same time. So they're really committed to be able to kind of build those relationships. We have Ag Extension, employment offices, adult ed, women, infant, children, WIC offices, boys and girls clubs, crop insurance agencies. These guys work with farmers, chambers of commerce, police departments, Department of Labor. So again, visiting any agency that would work with families or could provide a referral to families, of possible families. So you want to make sure we do have a resource portal that does exist. That once we found findhelp.org, we kind of stopped using this as much, but it does exist out there, where we were able to put a lot of different agencies that have resources for Migrant Ed. But again, I think findhelp.org is super good, so we kind of switched over to using that a little bit more. Let's see. Okay, so moving on to schools. All MEP programs should be developing a multi-level approach to work with their school districts. This should include how to work with them on the state level, on the regional level, on the district levels, and what does that look like for each individual recruiter working with schools. So from the state level, if you are a state level person, state directors should be actively working to develop partnerships with schools from the top down. We see this very often from the bottom up, and it's way harder to do it. Now, I realize some states are local control, and so they may not, be able to push ideas down as much as others. In Tennessee, for example, at one point we were able to, in order for them to get their federal funding, they had to make sure that every single kid that was new to the district filled out an occupational survey. So they had to show us that whether the kids were, what their parents were working. And it took us a long time to develop that, but it was incorporated in every single school district in our state. And that was something we could do with our state leadership. They worked with us very well on that. But superintendents should all be aware of the MEP program. Title I directors should all be aware. Title II directors. You want to make sure that people are aware of it, and you're able to, really develop those best practices. So it can be helpful to have an assigned migrant liaison. So this would be something, from top down, like a, McKinney-Vento liaison. This person could be assigned even if the district is not receiving MEP funding, that they're the ones that know about Migrant Ed. So maybe once a year, twice a year, you provide training to all of them. These people should be trained on MEP and eligibility requirements. They should be trained on what to do if they find a child. Make sure districts know what is available to MEP children, even if there's no funding in that district. Sometimes you're trying to develop a program, and you may only have a handful of kids, and you're trying to build it bigger. So what resources exist, even if there's not like a full-blown program in that area. So like it says here, Migrant Ed programs should be extremely thorough in their approach to finding eligible migrant students, and schools are really important. Don't assume some districts don't have any Migrant Ed students. Make sure that schools are filling out those needed surveys, that they have a liaison who's aware of eligibility requirements, and that the superintendents are also aware, the school staff are aware. So don't just be like, well, it doesn't look like they've got much going on. There's not a lot of ag here. They could be secondary moves. They could have, you may have a border state that, they're coming from another area, and, the state over, there's a lot of movement, but you're not knowing about ag in that area, and you're not having a lot of response yet from the superintendent. So maybe you reach out to Title I, maybe you reach out to the ELO coordinator. You're going to want to make sure you have really good contacts with each one of your school districts. One thing that you can do is check out the mobility data. This looks different in every state. I've mentioned this a lot to different states. One thing that we found really helpful in Tennessee was, for example, we could look at each school in a district and figure out which school had the most mobility, most kids moving in and out. So most school districts know which one, which schools might have higher mobility. And this can be helpful because it can let you know on housing zones where, why are people moving in and out? For example, the school district where I live, I was over the after school program for a long time, and we had certain areas that the housing, some housing was definitely what we would call transitional housing, where people would come in and they'd rent for a couple months and come and go. And so we'd always have more movement in that. So you want to make sure that you're really looking at what's going on. So there are schools who think they don't have migrant students because they don't fully understand the definition of migrant student family. Yeah, I mean, that's part of Migrant Ed's job, to be able to provide that education, provide that explanation. And especially now when you turn the TV and you hear about migrant this or migrant that, and it's not our definition, you have even more work that you need to do to make sure that they realize how this, falls in. One thing that we have, in case anyone's interested, is we do a training for agribusiness, for example, on the history of migrant workers in this country, of ag workers, not migrant workers, but ag workers. And if you look in the last, 100 years, we have relied on other populations from different places to work in ag. And sometimes it's just a little bit of an education to be able to say, hey, look who we have, we all like to eat. We all like, to be able to go to the store and have this food, but look at the history of who has worked in agriculture. It has been populations from all over the world that we've asked to come in at different times, and sometimes we've wanted new populations, but we have not had domestic workers work in agriculture as our main source for many, many years. And so it can be really helpful for them to realize that Migrant Ed started back in the 60s after Harvest of Shame, and they, after that documentary, and when they realize that this is a program that's existed for many years, this is not something that just started, in the last 5 years. A lot of times people will start putting the right terminology with it, and they'll start looking at how absolutely important it is for, to have populations working in agriculture, and what a wonderful thing that's been. So we didn't make a video. I have a PowerPoint of that, so I can share the PowerPoint slide. Anyone that wants that, just email me and I'll share that with you. Okay. If you're working with MEP students and their families and they have needs, the school should be aware of it. So once you start this relationship with the school, you want to make sure that, you're getting those surveys. As you have students and they have needs, you can kind of go back and forth and share those needs with it. So making sure you're able to make a greater impact. We would have tutors, for example, that as soon as they were assigned to work with migrant students, they would send an email to the principal, and they would send an email to like the school counselor, and just say, hey, I'm, the Migrant Ed tutor. I'm working with so-and-so. If there's ever anything that you want me to be aware of, any specific needs, any projects that are coming up, please make sure that you send those to me. And so they would open that communication back and forth. And so you want to make sure that schools really see Migrant Ed as a direct ally to be able to serve those students. So now we're going to switch over to housing. So this is a picture of I'm trying to remember if this is the one that we had. We used to have this ridiculously huge trailer park in one of our counties. And it was my job when I very first started to canvass it. And I thought, how on earth am I going to do this in the amount of time that I have specifically? Now, people keep asking for a video. I don't have a video. That is a slide deck. So if you need the video, if you need the slide, you email me because there's a bunch of you, and I'll put my email right now in the chat box. And so if you want that history of history of farm workers, you can definitely request that. But like I said, I will not do it based off the chat. There's too many of you, and I don't know what your emails are. And because we didn't make you guys register for this, we're not going to send you, we have everybody's registration and all of the presentation files. We'll share that out with everyone that's registered, but you can request that to me there. Okay, so looking at this picture, I want you to think about, and you put this in the chat box, what would be your, yes, thank you, Kendrick. Their Harvest of Shame is on YouTube. That's the documentary. So you can definitely find that there. What would be your strategy if you're the recruiter and you have this trailer park to canvas? How are you going to do it? What are you going to do? Are you going to talk to absolutely everybody? What would be your strategy? How are you going to cover this? Go ahead and put it in the chat box, because many of you have this kind of challenge. And some of you may be brand new and maybe not done any housing and you're wondering, I have no idea how I would canvass this. So put that in the chat box. Olivia says, visit the office and talk with the manager. Someone says a mail out, leave brochure on doorknobs, go door to door to set up a meeting. So we'll let these ideas come here. Let's see, flyers, go do a sweep, help do a sweep. Find existing families on the map and canvas around those homes, post the flyers, try to find the manager, check data for past migratory families, coordinate with supervisor and do a sweep. I would start section by block, start looking for license plates out of town, travel in groups, go to the office. Okay, so each one of you are going to have different strategies. So in my case, I didn't have anybody else that was going to come after me. I couldn't do a sweep. So I like to do a mix of things. So I like to talk to the office manager, explain what I'm doing so I don't get kicked out. So that would be kind of my first strategy. And then I like to do it in blocks and sections. Isabel said, put a tent in the entrance with snow cones. Yeah, that would be good if you have those resources for snow cones. I didn't have any resources. People say they ran a student system. So the reality of this is unless you thoroughly canvass it, you could possibly miss people. So you want to make sure, someone said, get a grounds map and bring lots of brochures. So there's a lot of strategies you can do. You can, if you have limited time, you can do sections. But one thing I found that's been pretty good in most places is that you want to knock on, so these are all in sections. You know, you want to knock on several doors and ask. People generally know their neighbor, the neighbor across the street, right next to them, but they may not know a whole bunch farther down. So my favorite strategy was to knock on a door, see if they were possibly eligible, and ask about all of their neighbors. And then usually they'd say, well, no, this one's from there, or this one hasn't been there, this one has. And then I would ask like the next one over and ask the same thing. But when they start telling me the multiple things, then I wouldn't knock on every single door. I would keep going until I knew, all right, I pretty much talked to everybody and I can be able to see this section. All right, this guy's been here longer. I've seen a lot of recruiters go drive around just for license plates, and sometimes that can be helpful, but you can waste a lot of time just looking for that. And because of subsequent moves and other places, and because not everybody's always going to be home, you can employ a lot of different strategies there. You could put flyers in the laundry room. That's a good idea because people are not always going to, there's going to be different people coming and going. But the reality is you're going to have to spend a good amount of time knocking on a bunch of these. If this is the kind of place that it seems like, maybe you talk to half of the trailer park and nobody's come for ag, everyone's been there a long time, then you might have to think your strategy. But you want to, if it's the kind of place where people are coming and going, the managers are a great place to start talking and asking multiple people about sections, but you're going to have to really coordinate. So it says here, once you get the first family, probably they refer to other families. We used to love to know when the bus was going to drop off the kids. So bus drop off is probably about 3:15, and pretty soon we could see where all the kids go. So it says you need to go to every home because the family, some of them double up. Let's see what else we have in here. Big apartment complexes with Section 8 usually organized like an appreciation day, cooking hot dogs and burgers, and sometimes they need help. That's a really good idea. So I think the main point of this is you're going to have to employ a bunch of different strategies, but if you are a recruiter that only drops off flyers and expects them to call, you're missing people for sure. So the more thorough you are, the more chance you have to get to know your community, the more chance you're able to do it. But if you got to be at the right kind of place. You got to make sure that you talk to the manager and they say, yeah, we do have people that come and go, or no, everybody that's been here has been here for probably 6 or 7 years. This is a really established community. Then you may want to, go somewhere else. It says, look for a bunch of boots outside the door. Yes, look for signs that let you know that this, there's the Tyson plant and there's the aprons and the boots that are right there. Oh, there's the boxes and where I live in Tennessee, we have nurseries. And so there's certain types of baskets that they use to dig the trees, and you can see those. So look for those things that'll let you know. If you're lucky enough that they have like a processing plant, little parking pass in their car, that's always helpful too. So you want to know that you can recognize those things. So perfect, right, going with things that are a lot of items that are left outside or around homes that can indicate a potential migrant worker or student, agriculture equipment boxes, power lines in fields near farms. So an interesting thing I had one year, I was working in New Mexico helping their program, and they had given me a list of possible places that I can't remember whether they were surveys or so my GPS, it was out in the middle of nowhere, and my GPS kept telling me that I had arrived and there was nothing there. And it was one of those things that I was just out, it was nowhere. I was out in the middle. We drove far in my stupid little rental car, and the road was not good. And it just kept saying, "You're arrived, you're arrived, you're arrived." And then I realized, like, there's nothing around. So I started trying to look for the power lines, and then could see the power lines where they would go. And I followed them and wound up finding a house in the middle of literally nowhere. And I found a family that was there. So they were working on helping with cattle, and they were way out on the range in this particular area. And they were, I mean, we would have never found them. And so later somebody said, "Well, you should have looked at Google Maps and looked, the above view to find it." I thought, well, yeah, that would have been smart, but I didn't do that. I just thought my GPS would take me there. So you're looking for out-of-state licenses, foreign language boxes on the porch or in the trash, trailers or housing near the farm site. Some places, if it's a really dry place and there's a lot of dairies, muddy tires can help with that, box trucks. It says looking for a big bus or passenger van from the comments. Sometimes a big farm or large agribusiness will house its workers in several trailers in a large trailer park. So muddy shoes, clothing on clothesline. You might be looking to see, whose clothes are they? What does it look like? Does it look like, does it look like it's all guys that are working there? Does it look like there's are living there a bunch of kids? You can kind of look at the clothing there. So this is a picture of a porch in Tennessee that we've got some scratch for chickens. We've got rosca de reyes. We've got grupo modelo. We've got different things, the fertilizers, the scratch, the things like that. We did find a family at this place. So agriculture equipment. So those little baskets that I mentioned that we have, this is specifically one from Tennessee. These are the tomato buckets that we would always look for to see specifically on there. So there's like 4 different types of housing visits that we mentioned in the balanced recruitment. One is visiting farm worker housing, something that you already know. If you're in the state of Michigan, for example, Michigan has a really cool thing where their farm worker housing is registered. That's not the case in most places. We used to keep listing of all of our old addresses where we had families, and that when we didn't have a farm to visit or we weren't sure where to go, we would check out the old addresses and see where families used to be, conducting door-to-door efforts in areas that it looks like it's, that people come and go a little bit sooner. So, you want to make sure that you're keeping track of where families are coming and going each year, where they've gone in the past, and making sure that you visit those places again. You want to make sure that you're able to really explain that. Sometimes I know programs that have really worked to work with the landlords of the places where families come back and forth so they can know and kind of develop a relationship with them. So you want to, figuring out if something's for rent, who owns that, making those relationships with property owners or managers can really be very valuable. A lot of property managers have multiple properties. And so, you want to try to make sure, when you're calling apartment complexes, for example, you can ask who rents for a short time. If they know if there's, places that you call an apartment complex and you ask that, they'll say, no, that's not us, but so-and-so, usually they know each other and they know of the other apartment complexes and they can probably provide some leads. So we also like mobile home village. So let me drop this in the chat box. Let me see if I can open this up. So mobile home village it takes the listing. We have a listing of all the trailer parks on the ag portal that we have for IDRC. But this one lets you kind of search your particular area. Somebody give me a zip code. First zip code in the chat box I'll use. Okay, so Natalia, you got the first one. That's moving now. 28422. So she's in North Carolina. Now, it'll let you do filter. It'll say, okay, you want to filter by amenities? No, we do not want to. So it'll say, do you want to look at anything that's around us, a certain area? And we'll say, we're going to look at the places with homes for rent. So then it'll let you see which ones. So here's Broadview Communities. And so it'll click on here and say there are, it'll give them all the places that right now are renting. If you don't want to know renting and you just want to look at other things, hope I'm sharing this, that you can see this. Yeah. So you can kind of see, it'll also let you kind of filter by which is pet friendly, which has a pool. Those kind of things in a clubhouse are going to be the places that you really don't need to go, and you can go to the other places. So this is kind of a helpful tool sometimes. I also like rent.com. And so I'm going to take another one of your zip codes that you already have in here. Let's see. 85128. So this is Apache Junction, Arizona. So on this one, you can see the prices and say, you know, I want to see what's available for 300, nothing. What's available for 500, nothing. What's available for 600, nothing. So now we're getting up into 800. So you're going to be able to see kind of price ranges, but we usually try to start with the cheapest one possible. It looks like everything's kind of expensive. Geez. Wow. So you got to keep going up. So once you get here, it's going to let you see different ones, and you can see if any of those places have units that they rent. And sometimes, of course, luxury ones are not going to be helpful. So like it'll say, what are all the cheap apartments? And it'll show you the cheapest ones. And sometimes those may be some of the easiest ones to rent, but you can always reach out, call to them, and see if they know if any of their tenants, you know, if are newer, and kind of explain the program. So sometimes we used rent.com as a resource. So we do have, like I said, on our website, all of the, maybe I should share that. You guys might not be familiar with that. I always assume everybody knows where that is. If you go to our website, to recruiter resources, and then go to the ag information portal, every single state, I'll look at Colorado, see if I can speak. If you scroll down, we have a whole ton of resources, and we have the mobile home parks right there. We have a listing, and then we have a map below that you can kind of see. So you can just be able to look for your county and be like, all right, I'm in Pueblo, and I can see all of those ones. It'll say if it's small, if it's medium, if it's large, and let you know the size of that housing. Okay. So conducting door-to-door, we probably should not call it sweeps, but efforts. You always want to make sure that you're looking at everything, your old addresses, your current addresses, anything you gained from your research. And then I'm going to switch right now over to agriculture. So though I kind of touched on a little bit of each one of these. I have a training that I'm doing, I believe, tomorrow, that is specifically on some new ways to directly work with agriculture. So on this one, the balanced recruitment, we just cover the basics. The next one that we're going to be presenting one of these days this week, specifically on agriculture, is like if you're the person that has to reach out and you're really not sure what to do, we've got a bunch of steps that you can follow that'll help you on this. But we already have lists on the ag portal for every single state. So if you're new to this, we already have on that ag portal that I just shared. Maybe I should go back and share with you the link for that. That way everybody knows where that is. So every single state, we have a ton of resources and a ton of lists of farms and everything already on there for you. So please check that out. We specifically on the balanced recruitment, we talk about how to use your time effectively, how to interview managers and workers, and important things that you want to make sure when you visit a job site. You want to make sure that you know that it's an eligible activity. And I only put that in there because when I first started, I'd learn some of the rules, and then I'd go out and go to work, and then I'd learn some more, and then I'd realize, oh, geez, the people I just signed up are not eligible because this is, you know, past initial processing or something. So you want to make sure that you know that the places that you're going to are eligible. And then you want to be able to think about when you get to that place, how are you going to be able to talk to the workers? So the ag portal should really help you know how to find your farms. And then we suggest that you do research on your particular areas. So a successful recruiter knows about their type of qualifying work. They know about those things that are in the area. They know which businesses outsource. They know which ones are, you know, just that use their, you know, family members that never move. So you want to stay up on those different things. And so it says if you're new, you want to make sure that you're doing your research. You're learning about those industries. You're figuring out on the IDRC website, for example. Let me share another resource we have. Again, on this thing, we see some of these new things. We have ag industry profiles, and we just added a bunch more of them. Maybe you're brand new and you're not really sure what on earth in corn would qualify, or Maybe you want to know a little bit more about the cotton industry or the dairies. Like, that, of course, cows have to be milked, but how does it set up? So we have trainings on each one of these different industries that you can open it up. You can take a look at pecan industry, for example, and you could see, we're the world's largest pecan producing country, and there's 2 different types of pecans, and figure out what does it look like? Where are they grown? What's the history of the industry? So you can talk legibly when you get out there and you're talking with a farmer. The different types of pecans, and how they work, and where the acreage is it going up or down? So there's a full training on each one of these industries to be able to hopefully help you be able to understand more about what's going on. So here's some examples, questions that you might want to ask or know. You can use the ag portal. You can use all these different resources that we have. We have all the H2A and the H2B in your areas. These are sent out, and you can use them. We suggest you use Google. You can do google.com alerts, and you can set up alerts that you specifically want to know, that they'll send you a notification whenever there's an article about Tennessee tomatoes or whatever your industry is that you have in your particular area. And they'll just give you an alert anytime that something comes up related to that. So we also suggest that you work specifically with your ag extension offices. These exist in every single county. I think I've got a link here to, oh no, I don't have it. So we can just do ag extension near me. You can find, you can just Google it for where I am, for example. Let me make sure I'm sharing this. No, I'm not sharing it. You can look up your ag extension offices by state. So Arkansas has a really good website here. Let me drop this in, that you can find your ag extension. These are the guys that work specifically with the farmers. They do all the farm training. They do pesticide training. They do a lot of the certifications, like the beef certification and different. So they know the farms in your area, and your farmers trust them. So these are people that you really want to be working with. And so that's a way that you can find them. You also, USDA, the Farm Service agencies, they work specifically with farmers also. They can also give you a lot of really good resources. And one of the things that we like to use is manta.com. And let me share, we have most of your ag lists, most of your states on there, but let's say, I'm going to say manta.com, make sure I'm sharing this so you can see it. Somebody give me a state. The first state we put in here, Kansas, Sandra, Speedy. So I'm going to do Manta, Kansas, agriculture. So you can do your own state right here too. Now, Kansas, we've already pulled down agriculture. Let's see if I can spell it. So once I get this, Manta will come up. And so I can click on this. Now, we have all these lists on your ag portal that I showed. But if you scroll down, Manta, it will show there are 15,000 businesses under agriculture in Kansas. So the cool thing is, if you scroll down, ignore this top stuff. There's a bunch of farms already showing up. But down here, it's going to start breaking it down into subcategories. So maybe you're interested in the hogs, or maybe you're just interested in vegetables and melons. You got to close all their junk out. But then it's going to show you the different places specifically. So let's look at Lewis Produce. It'll say this is categorized under vegetables and melons on their tax records. They show that it was established in 1962. They make over $200,000 and employs a staff of 3. If they only make under $200,000, they're not huge producers, so their staff is going to be small. So you can kind of learn a little bit more about them and see that. But if you scroll all the way to the bottom again, it will let you see where those are. So this was vegetables and melons. It says we've got 2 veg, lettuce, and leaf. We've got 2 market gardens, 3 pumpkin farms, 1 rooted vegetable, 1 squash farm, 2. And then it says, oh, you want to know it by city? You can also see, if I look at Carbondale, I can see the ones just for that particular city. And so it'll let you see, they've got 1 sweet right there. These guys are sweet corn. So I can then look on this and see. This one's only an annual revenue of 57,000. So, oh no, so you can kind of see approximately 1. So, this is one way that you can do a little bit more research on your farms. We have done the work for most of our IDRC states to be able to have those on their lists. We also have the labor contractor lists. And we have the USDA meat, egg, and poultry processors also. So you want to make sure one other thing that we always say is one of the most common mistakes that recruiters make when conducting research into farms and agribusiness is to believe that an address may be wrong because it leads to a farm, to a house, or a neighborhood. So do not make assumptions. Many farms do not have a specific office. It's their home. So I've been with lots of recruiters. We're like, this is a home. This is not a farm. Well, my husband and I have a small farm, and all of our tax records will take us right here. We don't have an office. We have cows. We raise a lot of our own food. But the only way you would ever find us would be it'd be in the home. So some of the smaller farms are going to be, it's going to be a house when you show up, and you can ask them, and Manta will give you their address, and you can show up there and find out. So I think we're doing it. I think the next session that I'm doing is on effectively doing an IDR plan for either a recruiter or for a region or for a state. You want to make sure that you take all of these different areas and you make a plan, and you really know, what you should do, how you should visit, how you do this balanced recruitment, and you're able to really look and see where those places are and figure out what's going on, and really be effective with your time. And so, and then you want to think about when you do get into the farm, like, what do you have that's really relevant to them? What are you bringing to the table that the farmer is going to really see a benefit from working with you and doing that with you? So I think with the balanced recruitment, there's a lot of things that, there's examples in there of possible needs. Do your workers have knowledge about local resources? Do they need help learning English? In the balanced recruitment, when we go very thoroughly into how to use that, and also how to use the tool, and how to use that, with the, codes and stuff, the QR codes for like farms. And so you'll be able to see that on there. Let me stop sharing there. So I hope this has been helpful. This is kind of a little bit of what we have on there. There's a whole bunch more on there. And like I said, later on tomorrow, I believe we're doing tons of presentations, so I apologize for not knowing exactly when, but you can look at the schedule. We have one on how to make your plan with all of these different elements to make a balanced recruitment plan. And then we have one specifically for coordinators, so that you can know exactly how to support your recruiters, what you can do to make that easier for them. So it says, did anyone know what website to find the inspection paperwork that are filed for H2A? So Department of Labor does those inspections. So you could reach out specifically to Department of Labor to get that. So I appreciate your time. I think we're short on time now. I want to make sure I close this in time because we do have another session after that. The next session will start in 15 minutes. And so if you're interested in going to another, we are recording all of these and trying to post that. So I hope this was helpful. I appreciate you guys listening to me talk to you here, and hopefully this will give you some ideas of how you can support your recruiters, or as recruiters, what you can do while you're out in the field. So thank you, and we hope you'll join us the rest of the next 2 days for the sessions we have, and appreciate you showing up today.